to the Shades of Entrepreneurship, where we interview entrepreneurs to inspire the future entrepreneur. I'll be your host, Mr. Gabriel Flores. So grab a drink, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. My next guest is paving the way for increased innovation and diversity within underserved business communities by decentralizing access to capital. She is the head of Inclusive Entrepreneurship at Startup Junkies and the director of Kiva NWA. Please welcome Claudia Scott.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shades of Entrepreneurship. This is your host, Mr. Gabriel Flores. Today, I'm here with Claudia Scott from Startup Junkies, another one of those great programs that really help you take your idea and make it into reality. Claudia, how are we doing?
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Yeah, so go ahead and introduce yourself. Who is Claudia Scott?
Yeah, so I actually am the head of Inclusive Entrepreneurship and director of the Kiva Hub here at Startup Junkie. I've lived in Arkansas for about 11 or 12 years. I'm originally from Costa Rica, so Spanish is actually my first language. I've done all kinds of work with nonprofit, but this is definitely one that I find incredibly meaningful, and I get to connect with all kinds of entrepreneurs and business owners, so I love it.
Nice. So give us a little background. What is Startup Junkies? What does it do?
Yeah, so we were founded in 2008 by Jeff and Brett Ameren and his wife Phil Ameren. Uh, and then, that kind of started as a consulting firm and then kind of became this massive nonprofit organization in Arkansas that focuses on democratizing access to capital and resources to all entrepreneurs in the Northwest Arkansas area. My role particularly is very much focused on historically underserved entrepreneurs and how to better target and how to better kind of get our services into those people that may not know or may not be able to access them as easily as others.
Yeah, folks, right before we came on the show, I was talking about Innovative Junkies, another former guest that had been on the show, Jeff. So folks, go check it out, theshadesofE.com, go and subscribe. But it's really interesting because what you guys primarily help support is not only the entrepreneurial ecosystem, but you also help to create, really take that minimal viable product and turn it into a business.
Yeah, and it really is a great organization, great program. Because we can tackle entrepreneurship almost holistically. So, we have options for capital, we have options for mentorship and consulting, and then we have workshops and trainings and lunch and learns. So, regardless of what stage you are as an entrepreneur, whether, just have an idea or you've been a seasoned business owner for 10 years, there's always some room to grow and to improve. So we can be there, for our clients, whether they need us in one space or in 5 different capacities. So we are able to target entrepreneurship way beyond on just a one consulting call or just give you some cash and then never hear from us again. So we're able to really kind of just walk that line with them, which is amazing.
So tell me a little bit about your journey specifically. You mentioned you're from Costa Rica. So tell me
Yeah.
about your kind of transition.
Absolutely. So yeah, I was born in San Jose, Costa Rica. Most of my family still lives there. Actually, all of my family still lives there. And I've been in Arkansas for 12 years. I always knew I wanted to study abroad. So that's something I was very intentional about when I graduated high school. The Walmart, which is we're a big Walmart country here in Arkansas. So there was a Walmart National Scholarship Program for all Central American students in Mexico. It's been going on for about 40 years. So I was lucky enough to get that scholarship 12 years ago. And then I moved to Arkansas. I always like to joke that Walmart has supported my lifestyle my whole life. So I moved here 12 years ago. I love it. And I married, my husband is from Arkansas, so that's why I stayed. We do get to visit. A lot of people ask me, why would you move from Costa Rica? I can't give you a good answer. I do miss it a lot, but we try to visit often. One of my favorite things about this role particularly, so I have Tourette's, so I'm very passionate about the neurodiverse community as well. So that's one of the new things that we're targeting. So that's kind of a little bit about me. I am very proud Latina woman, very proud neurodiverse, and all of those things that kind of make me who I am are all kind of interwoven in Startup Junkie in some way. So it basically is the best of both worlds.
I love it. Now, have you done any entrepreneurial work or working with the Startup Junkies is kind of, you mentioned the start of the nonprofit world previously. So what have you done before the Startup Junkie world?
Yeah. So, growing up, every time somebody asked me what I wanted to do, I said rich. I just want to be rich. So
Great
after
answer.
college, I was very driven. I was like, I want to work in banking. That just sounds important and sounds like there's money there. So I'm just going to work in banking. So I tried that for 2 or 3 years and I hated it. I hated it so strongly. It really did make me feel like just a hamster in a wheel going over and over with no tangible impact. So about this is right, probably 2 months before COVID took over the world. I decided to kind of just do my own thing. I've always, like I said, been passionate about disabilities and how to better gain give access to people. So I started a company that focused on translating, transcribing, and subtitling media just out there, whether it's YouTube videos or like content videos, marketing. So I did that for a few months, which I do think we all blame COVID for all our failures. I'm one of them too. But then also one of the big things that I will blame is I did not know the amount of resources and knowledge that was really at my fingertips so close. Like I live in Fayetteville. I've lived here for years and I didn't know. So I think the COVID and then the fact that I just really didn't get the resources that I needed at the time. So that was kind of like my first journey. I mean, if we do go back, my dad is a serial entrepreneur. I grew up making chocolates and ice cream and selling jewelry so I could go to concerts. So I would say I'm always been kind of into entrepreneurial space. We have a very entrepreneurial family. Latinos are statistically very entrepreneurial people. So I would say it's kind of always been in me. One of the things we always like to tell kind of our clients and when we do big workshops, so many people say, I don't want to be an entrepreneur, like I want to have a paycheck. But really, to me, I feel like entrepreneurship is almost something that you have in you. You can work for someone else your whole life and you can still have an entrepreneurial spirit. It's up to you if you kind of want to nurture that and nourish that and grow it, or you don't. So I would say I've always kind of been passionate about that. I did that for a little bit and then worked, I took some months after, kind of worked in just me and realizing really what I wanted to do. Read lots of books, realized that the best way to pick a career field is kind of finding that intersection between things you're good at and things you're actually passionate about. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different. And that's how I got my start in nonprofit. I worked for a federal program that helped with migrant students. So that was honestly one of my favorite jobs I've ever done. And then I did some time at the local chamber, and then finally landed in Startup Junkie. And I don't say it because I work here now, but it really has been my most favorite job I've had so far. So that's a little bit of the entrepreneurial journey I've been on.
I really love your focus in regards to, it's true. Latino community is very, very entrepreneurial. In fact, if you look at the latest statistics, I think Latina women in general by themselves contribute about $2.9 trillion to United States GDP. Now, that's also, folks that have been listening and watching the podcast. One of the things I actually started here in the local Oregon Pacific area is Latino Founders. So I'm the co-founder of Latino Founders, the 501c3. Our goal is to help scale 100 Latino businesses here in the Pacific Northwest to $1 million recurring revenue in 5 years. So we're doing that through our business accelerator program. We got our pitch competitions. But one of the things, you also mentioned was just limited resources to the underserved, kind of underrepresented entrepreneurs. Talk about some of the financial resources and opportunities for economic empowerment
Yeah.
for the historically underserved entrepreneur.
I would love that. And as we talk stats, I love these numbers. I've looked up the Latino people, particularly in the US, are 1.5 times more likely to start a new business
That's
than,
correct.
our white counterparts or whatnot. So I think it's definitely one of the populations that I'm very, very passionate about. But as we talk about historically underserved communities, one of the things that we're trying to do at Startup Junkie is, yes, Latino, Black, Asian, there's all of these historical underserved communities, but it really does go much more beyond just race and gender. So we like to think about our veterans, our single parents, our entrepreneurs, which we have a lot of those, our neurodiverse community can be very entrepreneurial too. So we've tried to find ways that we can still make programming that's tailored to historically underserved communities without further segregating us as groups or minorities. So it's a very interesting line to walk, because you got to be very intentional from what you name your events to who you talk to. But I think one of the good things about being intentional and trying to kind of walk that tight line is that a lot of people give us grace if we ever do make a mistake. So I do think that's always important to kind of reflect. At Startup Junkie, particularly for capital, we do have our Kiva loans. So if people are not familiar with Kiva, it's an international nonprofit that is particularly in the US offers zero interest, no fee crowdfunded microloans. So they're anywhere between $1,000 to $15,000. Kiva Northwest Arkansas opened in early 2020 with the support of the Walton Family Foundation. There they are again. So in the last 4 years, we've been able to serve almost 170 loans with an average size of $10,000, $12,000. And we have surpassed just this year. So the cumulative three, I think so far for our first 3 years was $1 million in funds for small business owners. And in the past 9 months, we've actually gone into 700,000. So we've almost tripled our growth in the last couple of years, which is amazing, while maintaining still 92% of all of our clients are self-identify as a minority. And I think 82% or 85 are all women. So that's some metrics that we're very, very, very proud of. I think our Asian American and Pacific Islander has tripled in the last 2 years. Most people don't know this, but Arkansas particularly has the largest amount of Marshallese residents in the contiguous United States, so outside of Hawaii. So we have a really big Asian American and Pacific Islander community that wasn't really getting targeted as much. So with our Kiva loans, it's definitely a great resource. It's very mission oriented. So we want to make sure that most of our funds are going to historically underserved communities. Doesn't mean that if you are a cisgender white male, you cannot apply. We have many that have been very, very successful, but we do try to be intentional with who we give capital to. And then we also have, which is one of my favorite kind of startup junkie initiatives, we have a thrift store locally here about 20 minutes from our offices, and all of the profits from the store go to business grants in the community. So those were also, we try to be very intentional. And something new that we've started this year is if you have already gone through a Kiva loan and you have a Kiva loan with us, sometimes we cap our grants to like $500, $700. But if they have a Kiva loan, the thrift store will actually pay up to $2,000 towards their loan. So they get to, they don't pay for us longer. They cannot relieve. So it really is, we try to find ways that we can find partnerships and also bring value to the community. And I would say those are two of our biggest ones. We do have venture capital roundtables or VC days or CEO panels. So those are always great. They might not come with like actual capital and cash for you, but I feel like the exposure is still very important.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like one of the things like we do with Latino Founders, again, folks, go check out, you subscribe to shadesofe.com. You can kind of learn all about it. But essentially what we really primarily focus on is the pitch competition. Our goal is not to exploit our community. Our goal is to amplify our community and help them build generational wealth. Now, one of the things you also mentioned was the wording. Now, folks, I want to make sure I'm very clear on this. Yes, we are called Latino Founders. I am Hispanic. The last individual that won the pitch competition is from El Salvador. We are very diverse. I get a lot of people saying, especially primarily the white males, like, oh, so I can't win. No, if you have a business that is scalable and you're interested, by all means. Now with the kind of in the same iteration, Claudia, like you mentioned, we are very intentional with our purpose. We are very intentional with what we're trying to do and who we're trying to scale and who we're trying to target. Now, I was actually in a board meeting, an executive call just this morning, talking about the definition of underserved entrepreneurs. And that's one of the things that's kind of unique as well. And one of the things I actually kind of argued this morning was, maybe we shouldn't think of it as like cultural or race and think about it as specific industries. The farming industry is an underserved community, right? Thinking about it in different areas of that need. But statistically, you mentioned the statistics. This is a sad reality, folks. About less than 1% of VC money actually gets sent to the Latino or Latina population, right? And I think it's less than that for the African American community, even less than that for the women community. So we're not asking for much, but we are asking for an opportunity to sit at the table. And so I understand there's a lot of people that have a different vision and different probably definition of underserved and Latino Latino and Hispanic, but the truth be told, Latino was only created because of the United States Census. You guys
Right.
still big.
No, I totally agree. And that, like you said, that is something that we're trying to kind of, teach and even learn ourselves. It really does go beyond race and gender. I still think it is important to keep race and gender as historical underserved populations and try to work for the betterment of that. But definitely it goes way beyond that. Like we mentioned, veterans are underserved. Like you mentioned, our agricultural farms and businesses, LGBTQIA, single parents. With Kiva, it's really cool. We can also help people that have had a criminal conviction to pass as long as it hasn't been violent or financial. So there's definitely, I think we get kind of very hung up on like the semantics of it. And then we really do need to look beyond just race and gender. And even race and gender shouldn't be something that's as divisive. It's just we are here to try to democratize access to everyone. So whatever that looks like, if you don't have access to them, we want to help you, access it. What I'm sorry, one of the big things that we've done this year too, I think it's actually going to be our first year anniversary. Startup Junkies has had a podcast for years. We actually celebrated recently our 400th episode. But something that we started last year was a podcast called Querido Emprendedor, which translates to Dear Entrepreneur. And this is just a small spotlight for our Spanish speaking business owners in Arkansas and beyond. We had someone from Nicaragua just a couple weeks ago. Just a spotlight to get all of these businesses that it really is just because they may not feel comfortable coming into the English podcast, or we don't want language to be a barrier. So we've started that. I think we've gone in, I think we've reached our first year and our numbers are great and sometimes even surpassing our Startup Junkies numbers. So I think there's definitely a big need. And at Startup Junkie, like I said, all we're trying to do is democratize access to everything. So how do we achieve that is, creating new programming, making space and making room for everyone. One of the things I like to mention always is, so particularly with Kiva, when I started and when I kind of took over the hub, one of our big requirements was if someone wants to get a loan, they have to come in person to our office, at least for a meeting or for like to do the application. And I realized, because at first I didn't think much about it. I'm like, okay, that's another rule. That's fine. And then what we realize is that we are just putting so many barriers just with that one thing that we just didn't really notice because it was not barriers that we have. So we're kind of just assuming that everyone has a car, and that's not the case. We're assuming that everyone has a driver's license, and that's not the case. Whether, you don't know how to drive, you're not allowed to drive, you don't feel comfortable. So many of these things. So driver's license, car, we most there's a lot of Latino and historically underserved people that work factory jobs or work 2-3 shifts. So how are we going to make them come for 2 hours in the middle of the day? That's also, if you have children and, you got to get childcare for a meeting at 2 p.m. So there were just so many things that because they weren't affecting us directly, we didn't even realize. So we've tried in the last couple of years to just like rework some of the things that may have been posing barriers to our historically underserved communities. And also just always being, I think, which is a big quality of entrepreneurs, is pivoting and changing and kind of like reworking things when they're not working. So we try to even take that to heart here at Startup Junkie. We're not starting a business, but we do have a business for entrepreneurs, which means we'll have to pivot and change as we grow.
Yeah, I really love what you're saying, because at the end of the day, like, again, there's a lot of things we don't know, folks. And so one of the things, in fact, you mentioned the hub. Now, this morning, as I was mentioning, I was in an executive meeting. We're actually creating the Metro Hub. So folks listening in the Oregon area or anywhere around the United States, there's more than likely some business hubs within your guys' community. And those are kind of areas to help support entrepreneurs, either identify different services, like Claudia was mentioning microloans here in Oregon. We got MISO, right? The microeconomic. So by all means, they have microloans. There's different chambers, and the chambers are going to be primarily helping with like the LLC. They're going to help you with branding, marketing, right? Kind of get once you got your minimal viable product, right? You go to like one of the MISOs, you go to their Saturday markets, and people are willing to pay. Okay, now that you go, like, let's start the brand. Let's start the marketing, let's the LLC. And then once you actually have a business and you got a couple employees and you're starting to run, come to the Latino Founders, right? And we'll help scale that business. We'll start talking about, lowering your cost of acquisition for a new customer, and creating a marketing funnel, and creating your value proposition, all these different things. But, one of the things that's what we're doing right now, and I'm going to kind of ask you a question on this. One of the things we're doing is we're trying to identify, one, who is our underserved community and what are their services. Like, for example, you mentioned with the car, which is a great example, hearing, the inability, maybe people can't hear, or maybe people are blind, right? And they need a different way. So again, underserved is not a race or a sexual thing. It's truly about, what is it about this community that needs it? But it's also actually going out there in the community, ingraining yourself in the community, and understanding what those needs are. Now, my question to you is, since you mentioned the hub, what have you found? What are some of the best practices that you found working in the hub that really help support your Latino or your underserved communities?
Yeah, I there's many things. I think there's a lot of kind of key pieces that make our work succeed. But I would say how willing people are to help is something that we take for granted a lot. Especially now, because I feel like everything is digitalized. We want everything quick. We want everything now. And we forget how important community and partnerships really are. So that's something that I think has been really helpful for us at the hub. And then also kind of building a relationship with our clients that goes just beyond, hi, this is what I need from you. Okay, bye. But kind of just building that mutual respect and like, hey, we're here to help you, because it makes multiple things easy. It makes it easy when, we have to kind of correct things for a loan or an application, but it also makes it easier when I have to give a feedback that might not be as well received if we don't have like a prior respect mutual relationship. So I think definitely building that connection with people, especially when it comes from historically underserved groups. Most of, and this is just, again, my Latino, my API, my Black, LGBTQ, every client that's historically underserved, when we tell them about Kivon, where we tell them about an event that is at no cost, usually the question is, what's the catch?
Yep. Very true.
Or what is, what do I need to give you? So I think that comes, stems from a long list of, people getting mistreated or scammed, just all these things. So I think kind of understanding who your client is first, as like, not an outward thing, just you doing the work, the research, the reading of like, okay, who are these people and how can I better serve them? So especially I feel like I can speak to the Hispanic community a lot. We have been misserved multiple times, so like I have people that tell me, oh, I hired a lawyer and I paid them $6,000, never heard from them again. I hired an accountant, same thing happened. So I think having that understanding first before you come into a meeting, because then it helps not taking things personally. So if I sit across from a client from Guatemala and they're like, no, you're definitely lying to me, what is the catch? I understand that it's not really directed at me, it's just the background that they have. So I think building that respect is important. Leaning on community partners, one of the big things, because we do multiple workshops. I mean, I had a workshop this morning about ways to fund your business that go beyond traditional loans, or so we definitely have a lot of content out there. And we're trying to find the ways that it gets to the right person. One of the things that I always kind of just advise our clients is it really is shoot your shot. So I think because we're in this fast, I want it now, I want it done era, we have kind of lost that art of just reaching out and asking for help. And one of the things I always tell is, when I was doing my transition from banking into nonprofit, I heard someone speak at a conference and I just reached out. And after that, she has helped me for years, helped me introduce, helped me with jobs, helped me with my resume. And just from hey, I heard you speak, it was amazing, just wanted to say that. And she was like, oh, let's go meet, have coffee. So I feel like that is something that we've lost a lot because we're kind of afraid of like, what are they going to tell? What are they going to think? I would say lean on your community. What is the worst they can say? No. Okay, ask someone else. Lean in your community. And I always tell them, lean on community partners like us that go way beyond just like a one-person mentorship, but again, that can tackle the whole thing. Just because entrepreneurship can be so isolating.
Very isolating.
You
Yes.
have to do 40 different jobs and you have to do them well, and it's just you. And if you do one job bad, that can be detrimental. So it can be isolating because how are you going to be good at 50 different things? That's where we come in, not just to give you the tools and how to be better or connected with someone that can do it for you, but also we forget about that human piece. It is so important to go into a place and be able to talk to someone that is either going through the exact same thing you are or just went through it, because as humans we need connection, and entrepreneurship can be so isolating.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that's why, one, accelerators are really nice, especially business agnostic accelerators when you don't have to sign, NDAs,
Yeah.
those, because it also creates collaboration and it allows those individuals to speak freely about some of the things they're going through, whether it be operational, marketing, financing, whatever the case may be. But then the other iteration is the mentorship and the importance of it. I really love what you're saying because it is true, folks. In fact, I would encourage you to also, if you want, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. God, I'm tripping over my words here, but please connect with me on LinkedIn. Hit that down chevron, hit connect, not follow. I don't want you to follow me. I want you to connect with me so I can also
Yes,
see what's
same.
going
I
on with
always tell
you.
people the same thing. I will go back and just connect
Me
with
too.
them if they follow me.
Constantly, please connect with me on LinkedIn so I can see what's happening in your life as well. But to your point, there are a lot of people out there that are willing to help you if you're willing to ask for help. Now, one thing, they also have to find some value in it for themselves and for you. Most of the time, the value tends to be the opportunity to actually teach you because, I work in the healthcare world and it's a, see one, do one, teach one kind of thing. And you kind of actually continue to learn and get better at your skills by teaching. It's the same thing in every subject. You want to get better at math, go teach somebody, a little kid, how to do math. You want to get better at Spanish, go teach people how to learn Spanish. You'll continuously get better and better and better, but the same rules apply if you don't do it. If you are inconsistent, so kind of going back to what Claudia was mentioning with the entrepreneurship and the difficulty of it, if you are not consistent, your consumers will notice, your brand will suffer, and it's a difficult thing. So making sure you create consistency with it, making sure you reach out, because again, there are a lot of nonprofits out there in your organization or in your state, in your community, in your region that are willing to help you. But more importantly, they're willing to connect you with people that will also push you beyond what you think you can possibly get to. Because again, there's things we know, the things we know, we don't know. There's a lot of things we don't know. And that's where really that mentor and kind of networking come into play. And it really helps kind of accelerate a lot of what you're doing. Now, Claudia, you're working with a lot of different entrepreneurs. What kind of advice do you give some of those that either one, thinking about going into entrepreneurship, so they're aspiring? So that's one question. And then two, what do you tell the seasoned entrepreneur that's been doing it for some time?
I've had this question asked before, and I think my advice is a little less work oriented and just a little more like life oriented. And I will tell you, I will tell a seasoned entrepreneur, I'll tell someone starting, I'll tell someone that's not in entrepreneurship at all, the same thing. I think number one is learning again how to give each other and yourself grace, especially in a career field like entrepreneurship. I think it applies to almost everything. Like I mentioned before, in this really quick, I want it now, I want it my way, and I don't want to hear anyone else's opinion. We really forget how to give grace to ourselves as entrepreneurs when we are not able to juggle all 50 things, or when, we have to accept that I can't do marketing or I can't do the finances. You have to give grace as you're having to ask for help, and then also give grace to others. So I feel like that's a big thing, especially in a world like entrepreneurship. It can be cutthroat, it can be, demanding and exhausting and isolating. But I think it's that portion of like learning how to give yourself and others grace that can really help you build a network of people that are gonna help you. So I think that's very important. How to build, this community of people that are like-minded. They don't have to agree with you on everything. And that's, I think, a big thing is like, just, we don't have to agree and we can still be like-minded. So people that have gone through a similar journey, I think that's a big portion for me. And then the second one in this is something that I always, every time I'm speaking to a group of women or Hispanic or historically underserved in general, is take your space. you mentioned when we first talked, when we first started talking, you said, well, we just want a seat at the table. And a lot of people will ask, well, what if they gave me a seat at the table just to check a box? That's fine. I don't care why you give me the seat at the table. If I can sit, I will make sure that you hear me.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think that is a big thing. We've always been afraid to take our space, to ask our questions, to be loud. And that is not something we can afford to do anymore. Um, so I think that is my advice just in general. I mean, clearly it doesn't have to be historically underserved. It's just walk into the room and take your space. You deserve it. You wouldn't be here if you didn't deserve it, or if so that's a big thing for me is knowing that you're allowed to ask the questions, especially when we talk about historically underserved entrepreneurs. The resources are there for you. uh they're not for a single group of people, they're not for the majority, they're for all of us. So being able to kind of feel that ownership of your community, I think, is very important.
Yeah, I was literally on a panel just yesterday, folks. Again, as I mentioned, I work in healthcare. Go check out the Shades of E. You can read it out the about me section. But essentially, one of the things was talking about was a lot of Latinos and Latinas within the healthcare workspace, and it's talking about career advancements. I've been in the healthcare industry for about 23, 24 years at this point. Done a lot of different jobs, up in kind of the in the little higher in the management positions now, really working on business development for the healthcare industry. Now, one of the things I actually told them before I left, I was like, at the end of the day, stay true to yourself. It's very important because, like you mentioned, Claudia, once you get the seat at the table, I don't care how you got there, if you had to elbow your way in there or whatever it is. Now that you have that seat at the table, it is imperative that your voice is heard because you are the voice of your community. And if they're not hearing your concerns, they can't fix it. If they don't know what's happening in your community, they're not going to fix it. Now, with the folks that are actually assigning the seats at the table, it is imperative. Get out. You have to stop looking at the 1,000-foot view of the community from your glass, pillars. It's imperative that you actually get down to the community, boots on the ground, shake hands, kiss some babies, and really figure out what's actually affecting your community. And I think that's the biggest misstep. I think we have a lot of leaders in community roles is they're really not associated with the community. They kind of want the title. Now, I don't want people with the title.
Yeah.
I want workers.
And I feel like also when we talked about all these barriers, so we're not seeing, if you have a room of 10 people where everyone has the same like background, similar family story, similar family unit, similar school, similar area, you're only gonna know what you already know. And that's something that I can mention, like happened to us. Nobody questioned the fact that we're asking people to come here and meet for 2 hours. Even I didn't question it at first until I was like, okay, let's think about my aunt who lives in LA that I see once every 20 years that doesn't drive on the interstate. How many of these are here? How many of these are the clients that we're serving? And because we don't have those experiences, we're not noticing. So I think that's the big thing of having, a proverbial very diverse table, is that you just don't know what you didn't live through. And if you have a bunch of people that look like you and speak like you and think like you and have the same family as you really won't be able to expand at all on your view of the world.
Yeah, not only on the view of the world, but your business, because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, you're kind of missing an opportunity to target a huge, huge
Oh,
opportunity from
absolutely.
from a revenues perspective. And the reason it's important to understand those cultures and communities, because that will allow you to understand how to market and brand to them. The messages might be different. You mentioned the podcast that you guys created. That's one's in English and one's in Spanish. And the Spanish one, sometimes the numbers actually supersede the English one. And that is because one, folks, that they're starting to realize it's understandable to them. One of the things during a pitch competition recently, we had a lady down in Central Oregon, and we encouraged her to do it in Spanish because it was, Spanish was her first known language, and English was her second language, and it was a little difficult. I was like, hey, we can understand what you're saying. Do it in Spanish. We'll fine. And it was really nice to kind of see that and how actually provide that opportunity as well. Because again, I think a lot of individuals that come from different communities or in different, whether you move state lines or county lines or across the country, you're going to go to a community that's probably a little bit diverse than you or a little bit different. It doesn't matter what it is. And now, again, I mean diversity in a lot of different ways. It might be a bunch of farmers. It might be a bunch of, you might go to the Brooklyn. You might go to down to Mount Angel where I grew up, where it's, small German community. There's no big box stops. It's just all entrepreneur businesses down there. and you're going to have a culture shock anywhere you go. I went to Mexico City and I had a huge culture shock because it's like the second or third largest populated city in the entire world. Like, again, no matter where you do what you do, you're going to have to, there's going to be different cultures. I would encourage you to get out there and meet those people because that's where innovation sparks. I always talk about Steve Jobs and went to Starbucks and, went out to Milan, saw the coffee shops and was like, we need that in the States. And now here I am drinking a coffee. So Starbucks, if you see me, go ahead and send me a gift card. But again,
Sponsor.
there you go. But again, the goal is just try to get out there, meet with people, network, because you're going to spark innovation. You're going to spark new ideas. And more than likely, you actually might find collaborative opportunities as well. Somebody might actually have the answer to that entrepreneurial question you've been asking for so long and I can't get this to work. Well, somebody else might actually know. So that's another reason why you should not be afraid to share your ideas. There's people out there that are willing to help you. You just have to be willing to take the step and do it. And it's like Claudia mentioned, entrepreneurship is not easy. It's going to be tough. You will have some scrapes and bruises, but at the end of the day, if you're not scared of your dreams, you're not dreaming big enough, right?
Absolutely.
Now, Claudia, how for folks interested in learning more about you, learning more about Startup Junkies, how can they connect with you? One of the things you mentioned was connecting you on LinkedIn. So how can we connect with you on LinkedIn? And how can we
Absolutely.
learn more about Startup Junkies?
Yeah. So startupjunkie.org is our website. I'll just give you guys that just because from there you really can't go anywhere from our Startup Junkie website. You can schedule consulting, mentorship meetings. You can see our list of subject matter experts, our podcast, all of our programs, even our grant program is on there. So I would say the Startup Junkie website is destination number one. Me personally, I'm on all social media as Claudia Scott. My last name is Porras. But I think if you look Claudia Scott, you may be able to find me. But like we were talking, lead by example. Connect with me, send me a DM. Let me know how I can help. Let me know if, whatever that looks like to you. One of the big things we tell people is, if you tell us what kind of programming, what kind of webinars, what kind of events, what kind of Zooms what you need help with right now in your business, then we can provide that. So, if anyone has a question or just an idea or a suggestion, don't be afraid to just let us know. But yeah, Startup Junkie and Kiva NWA on all social media as well, but you can find that from the website.
Love it. And again, folks, if you forget all of that information, you can head over to theshadesofE.com. Make sure you subscribe to the website. There will be a transcription of this conversation as well, a video and audio version, dedicated page with some backlinks back to the Startup Junkies team so you can actually have access to their website. And then you will also have a blog that's actually kind of dedicated to this conversation, kind of give you a quick synopsis of some education, pull out some tips for you. So again, go ahead and visit theshadesofE.com and subscribe. You can also visit us on LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Just follow at the Shades of E. Claudia, thank you so much. This was an awesome conversation. Is there any last words you have before we go?
Not really. I appreciate you in the time. I think that was a great conversation. I would just say as last thing, take your space. And that's I'll get it tattooed one day. Take your space for everyone listening.
Yes, I completely agree. Take your space. Unless you're on public transit, guys, I'm sorry. You can close those legs now. You do nothing in that is that big. Calm down. Just close them up. Let some people sit down. Claudia, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. For those following, please visit theshadesofE.com. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you for tuning in to the Shades of Entrepreneurship. For more information, please follow the Shades of E on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or visit theshadesofE.com.